5 Live. 10:47. Pet shops and dealers in England will be banned from selling puppies and kittens under government plans announced today. The proposals will mean those wanting to buy or adopt a dog or cat that's younger than 6 months old will have to go direct to the breeder themselves or to a rescue centre. The hope is that this will cut down on puppy farms, which can often lead to mistreatment of animals who are then sold on with a litany of health complaints. A ban on licensed sellers dealing in dogs and cats less than 8 weeks old is already coming in October. Brian May joins us, who's been a keen campaigner on this issue. Lucy's Law is how it's been known, Brian, up until now. What's your reaction to what's been announced today, the consultation? Does it go far enough for you?
I think it goes further than anyone could have hoped a few months ago. Obviously, nothing is ever far enough. No, I'm sure there will be people finding their way around this legislation, but that's the way legislation works, isn't it? You put it in place and then people try and find loopholes and then you gradually close the loopholes. That's always been the way for a couple of 100 years. But I think this is a fantastic start. Absolutely welcome it. I think Michael Gove is really setting a great example by leaping on this. And he gave full credit. I was there yesterday in the garden at number 10 and he gave credit to Mark Abrahams, who's led the campaign. And said, he was pleased to be able to respond not just to Mark and the animal groups like us who joined in this campaign, but also to the vast response from the general public. There was a huge wave of response to signing that petition. And he said, he's very happy to respond to public pressure because it's clear that this is what the public want.
And we... Roger Mugford's going to join us in a moment, and he's regularly on this programme, Brian, and people just love dogs and they love their cats. So how should they be acquiring them?
Well, my feeling is I don't really like the whole breeding system anyway, and that's another thing to address, whether it's cats or dogs. And if you want a dog or a cat, I would say the first thing you should do is go and see if there's one that needs rescuing in one of the many rescue homes, starting at Battersea Dogs Home, which also has cats. There are so many animals who are rejected or lost or abandoned or whatever, rescue them first because it's so awful to be generating new animals, from breeding programs, from people who want to make money out of it when there are animals in need of a home who are just waiting there for you and me. So, that's my first thing. Don't buy a dog, adopt a dog. Don't buy a cat, adopt a cat if you can. But having said all that, if your neighbour's got a cat who's having kittens, and you know what the situation is like, you trust them, it's been a nice confinement for the mother, then obviously go ahead. This law isn't designed to change that. The law is designed, or will be designed, to stop this dreadful puppy farming and kitten farming, which has been a huge, a violent abuse of the rights of these creatures. And I think you've seen the pitiful pictures of poor, female dogs that have had all their lives just forced to breed more and more and more, have many litters a year. And in the end, they're just destroyed. Their bodies fall apart, and it's a pitiful sight to see. And such a dog was Lucy. This campaign was named after Lucy, and we spent some time with Lucy, and actually she was kind of an icon for us. And I remember sitting around a table with Mark Abrahams when some of the animal groups weren't, well, I suppose you could say they were dragging their heels a bit, but sitting there and watching this dog and seeing what had happened to her, nobody could resist. And Mark was saying, look, there is no other way. We have to stop this completely. We have to stop pet shops. We have to stop third-party sales. And whoever is buying an animal has to see the mother and know that things are okay.
Well, you see, because Lucy had a curved spine, didn't she, as a result of being kept in a cramped cage? She suffered epilepsy.
And could hardly walk, and terrible skin problems. It's so pitiful, and it never should have been allowed. It's sad that this took so long, but then again, we didn't have Michael Gove in these last few years. Michael Gove comes in for a lot of stick from some quarters, but in the short time that he's been Secretary of State for the Environment, a lot of things have changed, and this is a major thing. I think this is a real step forward for animal welfare.
Roger Mugford joins the discussion, who's our resident animal psychologist on the programme, and purely fortuitously, Roger is on tonight after midnight as well to answer your questions. But you've got a couple of rescue dogs, haven't you? And how suitable are they for all families? For example, if a family had small children, is it still okay to go and get a rescue dog?
It is, but an animal that's been brought up in one of these factory farm, puppy farms, misses out on essential early experiences of being socialised, being exposed to an interesting and varied world, and certainly learning lessons as they do from their mother, because the mother's confined to a cage, and what can a mother teach a puppy when it's in a cage? So the quality of puppies, and eventually there'll be adult dogs that people can now acquire by looking out for real breeders and people who have a bitch at home, is going to be so much better, and that will feed through to the quality of dogs and the reduction, if you like, in behavioural problems in dogs, and reduce the cycle of animals being given up to rescue homes because they're difficult to control and to live with, and then being readopted through one of the rescue societies. So the whole production of dogs will be more focused upon quality and animals which are better suited to the important role that they have as companions to people.
Alexandra Baker joins us as well from the Pet Industry Federation. Alexandra, Brian rightly alluding to the fact that legislation comes first, and then perhaps people, unscrupulous types, might try and find loopholes. What might your concerns be?
Well, I mean, whilst certainly as the Pet Industry Federation, we definitely welcome today's news, but we do urge a certain amount of caution with regard to the announcement. It's important to put into context that there are about 80 licences which have been issued to pet vendors to sell puppies, and that's out of about 2,700 licences for all types of animals. So it's when you also then look at the demand for puppies across the UK, it's very unlikely that licensed pet vendors are actually the licensed pet vendors selling puppies are where the problem actually lies. The chances are that an awful lot of this trade is a lot of the demand is actually already being met in unlicensed ways, and so our concern would actually be that really we need to be looking at the supply chain and ensuring that the public are educated about where to get animals from, that they're not impulse buying, and that they're actually looking to source their animals from safe and happy places, really. But it's also
a strange anomaly, seems to me, Alexandra. I was looking at some of your figures from the Pet Industry Federation, and you've extrapolated the demand for dogs at being around 800,000 a year.
Yes.
The demand perhaps outstripping supply, and yet there are so many dogs, as Brian mentioned and Roger has experienced, in rescue centres that need good homes.
Yes, well, I'm not 100% sure on rescue figures. It might be about sort of 60,000 dogs, I think, that might go through rescue homes. We know that there are about 227 puppies that are come through the Kennel Club. So that's leaving sort of about 500,000 or so that are coming from all sorts of other sources that we simply don't actually know. There is not really very much data out there. We've extrapolated those figures, but it's difficult to really know. It's also worth pointing out that I know that rehoming centres, they do a sterling job, but they are actually, at the moment, totally unlicensed. So although it's important, if we're trying to push members of the public to go to rehoming centres, then we also need to be looking at licensing them as well, because although some of them are doing a good job, there are also some which may not be doing such a good job. We may not actually, therefore, be helping animal welfare. So I think from our perspective, it's important to sort of look at the scale of the problem first, to understand how the supply chain actually works, and then to find a solution which is going to be that's actually going to match up healthy, happy puppies with committed pet owners who know how to look after them properly, so that we avoid this kind of impulse buying and going to puppy farms.
Brian May, I think you wanted to come back in?
I would like to come back. I mean, I understand the point that's being made here, but I hate this talk of supply and demand. You cannot demand a pet. And, these are creatures. I think what I like about the Michael Gove situation is that we're starting to look at animals in the way we should look at them, in that they are creatures in their own right. They're not just there for our pleasure. And this whole idea that, we eat them or we pet them or whatever we do to them, and that's all is important, I think starts to go out the window. And I just wanted to mention one other thing which hasn't been sort of brought up really. This is a bigger picture than just the UK. And we know that there are crates of kittens and puppies coming into Farnborough pretty much every day of the week. This this new legislation, if it's done right, will stop all that. We'll stop seeing the suffering of these poor creatures that sometimes are taken away from their mothers at 4 weeks, or even less, I've heard, whereas they should be at least with their mothers for 8 weeks. So I think, okay, have a word of caution, fine, but let's acknowledge that this is a step forward and welcome it with open arms. This will go through Parliament. It will be talked through. There will be panels who will go into the detail, and a lot of these points that you're mentioning now will obviously be looked at. So I can only say, we should welcome this news and not treat it as if it's not helpful. It is helpful. I believe this will increase the awareness of animals' plight and increase their welfare. I do believe that.
Alexandra?
Yes, we, as I said earlier on, we certainly welcome the move. But as I said, we just, as I explained earlier, we just would like to see this sort of. It's a journey, really. I think that needs to be just looked at step by step. There are new regulations coming in on the 1st of October, which will already tighten the sales of puppies and kittens in third party. And we'd also perhaps like to see those bed in a little bit first and just establish, and maybe try and from that we may get more data from that as well, so to be able to try and understand a bit more about the way that the market works. And
let me just give Roger Mugford a 30 seconds as well, out of fairness, before we run out of time, Roger.
And the internet has changed everything and allowed connectivity, if you like, between people who want to acquire a puppy or a kitten and some third-party vendor in some distant place that ultimately ends up in a farm in Ireland, Wales, or Lithuania, or Poland, or somewhere like that. And please, I would ask listeners to by all means use the internet as a source of information about dogs, but don't buy a puppy or a kitten from that source, and go to the ultimate home, as Brian has been saying. Go to the people who actually have the mother to look at and to get to know, and make sure that the mother led a decent life, because those welfare issues will be passed on to the offspring.
Roger Mugford back with us after midnight. 08085 909 693 to call Roger with a problem about your pet's behaviour. 08085 909 693. And our thanks to Alexandra Baker from the Pet Industry Federation and Brian May, musician and animal rights campaigner.